in our community. So I want to introduce our two presenters today. We have Brooke Freeland and Cathy McHorse. Brooke is a policy consultant here at United Way for Greater Austin, and Cathy McHorse is the Vice President of Success by Six, also here at United Way for Greater Austin. So for those of you who are new to United Way, our mission is to bring people, ideas, and resources together to fight poverty in our community. And this event today is in direct alignment with our mission, as we are bringing people and ideas together to fight poverty in our community by using our voices or our resources to advocate for change on the local, state, and federal levels. So today we'll be learning what we mean by advocacy, why advocacy is important, ways to engage in advocacy, and how to make your story as compelling as possible. We'll then get a chance to stretch these new muscles by practicing crafting a story about an advocacy topic that is near and dear to our hearts, early childhood education. And we'll also learn why we need to speak up on behalf of children and how advocacy in this area helps us with our mission to fight poverty here in Austin. So with all of that, I am going to hand it over to Brooke and Cathy.
Great. Thanks. So our goal really today is giving you the tools and the confidence to be advocates in your community. So I thank you for showing up today and being interested and taking this first step to learn about how to be an advocate. And I know many of you are, but we're just going to help you sharpen those tools a little bit today. So kind of starting at the beginning is, what is advocacy? And this is, maybe the order doesn't make perfect sense, but it works with the language. My kids like to do this with the letters of their name, but you know, awareness about an issue. So it's creating awareness, strumming up awareness, developing research on issues. That's kind of using data to make your case. Voices a position on an issue. We're going to help you kind of fine-tune your voice and find your voice today. And organize events to promote an issue. Now, events might look a little bit different, but that doesn't mean we're sitting on the sidelines. Champions, you are all champions just for showing up and for the work you do. And then, you know, advances the importance of an issue. We're going to talk about childcare and why we need to be advocates on behalf of young children today, but there are a plethora of issues that need our support. And then the most important is the call to action. So once you have your tools, like, how do we go use them, and how do we get out into the community? And then the why is yearns for change. And I would kind of put that at the top of the word. I mean, that's kind of what drives all this work, but a yearning for change in our community. So we can go to the next slide. So to get us started, it's identifying a problem or an opportunity. For us today, we're using access to quality childcare as our example, as the problem that we need to address. And two, what's the change you want to see? And sometimes we don't know what the solution is, but we know what changes we want to see made. And for us, we want increased access for young children to quality childcare. Knowing the decision makers, today we're going to focus on City Council and in Austin and keep it very local view, but there, at the federal level, at the state level, city, school board, local level, there are players at every step of the way, but to not be overwhelming, we're going to keep it very localized on City Council today. And so I hope you kind of did your homework ahead of time and know who your City Council member is. If not, we won't test you on it, but there'll be a time later to figure it out. But that'll be helpful in your call to action. We'll just say that. And then engage in ways to influence and educate. And I'd say not just those decision makers, but friends, peers, your network as well. And so we're going to kind of go through all these steps today, and so you can hit the road running on your own. Okay. And so I said today our focus is going to be on high quality childcare. Now, just so we can use this as an example, but I know there's a lot of really worthy causes out there that warrant our attention. So I'm going to let we have a resident expert on the Zoom today. So I'm going to turn it over to the infamous Cathy McHorse, who's the Vice President of Success by Six. And she's going to lay it out why we should all be advocating for our youngest children.
Thanks, Brooke. I did call out the photo on the prior PowerPoint slide. That is a photo from Open Door Preschool. That picture is Sweet Latrice, who is the assistant director there at Open Door East. And one of the reasons why we're advocating today is yesterday it was made public that Open Door is they are closing one of their 3 sites. They're closing Open Door East. And they have a almost 50-year history of serving in our community, but they cannot sustain their operations at this time. So, that I think creates a sense of urgency for us right now to understand this. Childcare is struggling. Right now, since March, we've had a lot of our child care centers open and serving essential workers in our community. But to do it safely, they've had to change how they operate. And so they are incurring more significant expenses, and they also are enrolling fewer children. So they are needing to spend more money on supplies. They need to staff at 75 to 100% of their staff are there working, but they're serving only 25 to 50% of their children. A lot of full-pay families who have other options are not returning to center-based childcare. Families are choosing to keep their kids at home while they're working from home, et cetera. But we still have families who have to go to work and need care. Unfortunately, what we find is most of those children are supported by childcare subsidies, and the subsidy reimbursement rate falls far short of the cost of providing care. Childcare centers already survived on what we call very razor thin margins, and that margin has disappeared. And so the sector is struggling. What I like to say is this is not a new problem in our community. It is a problem that has been vastly exacerbated by COVID, but prior to COVID, there were vast inequalities in access to affordable childcare. We can go to the next slide. One of the reasons why we need to advocate is a reminder that young children don't have their own voice. They don't advocate for themselves. And the years that families have young children, they are busy. And especially those who are in greatest need, they have the least opportunity to be a voice for themselves. We're working with that, but we need to step up and own this as an issue in our community. We also need to create a sense of urgency about it. I don't think there's any elected official who would say, oh, I'm against quality childcare. I don't think kids should have quality childcare. It's just that they don't feel a sense of the urgency and a sense of the scope and scale of the impact. As our workforce has changed, we need more access to high quality care, and our system has not responded by creating a resilient system that is sustained with true funding streams. It's truly a pay-to-play system. And we now have the brain research that shows that access to high quality early childhood development significantly changes the trajectory for young children. Children who don't experience high quality early childhood education from that birth to 5 period, we have data that shows they don't start kindergarten off with all the skills and competencies that the teachers are expecting of them. So they're essentially starting behind. If they start kindergarten behind, they're 3 to 4 times less likely to read on grade level at 3rd grade. Our communities build prisons based on the number of kids who can't read on grade level in 3rd grade. So if they don't read on grade level in 3rd grade, you can see these other statistics. And we know if they don't start kindergarten, able to meet the expectations that the school has for them, it's going to cost us more by investing in retention, special ed, et cetera. It's very short-sighted of us not to invest early. So next slide. And this snapshot gives us a perspective of our population in Austin. As I said, childcare can be a pay to play. Families who can afford to pay for childcare can find high quality childcare. There may be a waiting list, but those who really can't afford it, we're talking about our youngest children, 34,000 children under age 6 in Travis County that live in households with a low income. More than 1 in 3 children, and 90% of these are children of color. So it's an issue of equity that sets our communities of color behind from the get-go. What I can tell you from this slide too is, well, we have 34,000 children under age 6 that are potentially eligible for subsidized childcare. We have only enough funding to serve 3,000 in our community on a daily basis. So imagine that gap. Now, not all of those children's parents are in the workforce, but we anticipate 60% of them are in the workforce. So about 14,000, but we can only fund 3,000. So next slide. And I can talk about this forever, so you guys keep me on time. Just a snapshot of COVID's impact on our childcare system. The Hobby School helped us with a study. Most of our childcare providers are small businesses with fewer than 20 employees, and many of those are owned and operated by minority women. Only 50 to 60% of our programs are open and operating, and as I said, they're operating at a reduced number of children. That means less revenue coming in, but operating at the same staffing levels, so they're still needing to pay, but they have less money to do it with. And I think it's important to remember that it's not just about the children, it's about their parents being able to go to work. If you don't have childcare, you can't go to work. And we do find people who make that difficult choice that they can't afford to put 2 kids in care, so they stay home, and we lose amazing people from the workforce. And the other piece is that the quality of childcare does matter. Childcare is not all created equal, and our standards in Texas are actually quite low for being a licensed childcare center. And so we're really pushing for promoting quality childcare, which costs even more. It's lower ratios, more adults with more significant training and education to provide the quality of care that the children need. So that lists the costs even higher. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of the snapshot of where we are in our community right now. And you may know that at the federal level, there is still, there's some requests for federal relief funding for childcare that has not yet been supported.
Great. Any questions for Cathy?
Cathy, you mentioned that Open Door East is closing its doors. Can you tell us a little bit more about the risk of closures in our community and Texas in general?
Yes, the NAEYC, the National Association for the Education of Young Children, has been doing surveys asking providers, how long can they sustain operating at these levels? And it's projected we could lose from 40 to 50% of our childcare supply nationally. And our Texas data mirrors it. We know that in Texas, just under 5% of programs have closed permanently, but we believe that's an underestimate. And Open Door really decided to consolidate its operations in 2 facilities so that they weren't carrying the cost of the 3rd facility when they consolidate their children and staff into one and meet their budget.
I have a question. Sure. Do you have any information about childcare for children with some of the more severe disabilities, such as intellectual disabilities, students who might be more challenging to provide childcare for?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, in Texas, we don't really we have very minimal tracking for data in Texas. So it tends to be more anecdotal who is willing to serve and support children with more significant needs. Our local Head Start programs typically serve up to 10% of their population will include children with pretty significant disabilities. And anecdotally, Open Door is one of those programs that was actually founded to serve children with disabilities. Sammy's House as well. But that is a data point that we need to find a way to really note that for childcare programs so the parents can have an easier time finding it. I think it's often word of mouth. And then of course we have the public school program that begins at age 3 if children age out of ECI. Great question, thanks.
Great. And I think we'll have some time for questions at the end as well, but for the sake of getting to the meat. But thank you, Cathy. And, you know, we're kind of priming the pump and I know you're on this call because you recognize need for quality childcare is important, but if you weren't a firm believer before, you are now, thanks to Cathy. And so here's where the rubber hits the road and where we need your help to keep moving this issue forward. And I will say, you know, we've been advocating and the United Way has been in the front being a wonderful advocate around access to quality childcare, the rights of childcare providers, working families. And, you know, this advocacy has yielded some progress and some wins. And so I think it's important, and I'm going to give you an example just to know that, you know, your voice matters and it makes a difference. And one of those kind of wins was during the COVID pandemic, the City of Austin, the City Council approved a $1 million emergency relief grant fund for childcare providers that were of quality and offered subsidies to children. And Austin was one of the few cities in Texas to have a designated emergency relief fund for childcare. And that would not have existed if it wasn't for advocates like you all kind of raising your voice and making sure your city leaders knew that this was important. So, you know, that was one win. The work is not over, but it just goes to show like you can make a difference.
Brooke, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, Brooke and I are used to tag teaming. I just also want to elevate how important the unusual messengers are in carrying the voice of advocacy. So they may expect to hear about the need for childcare from a parent, but to hear from others in the community, business leaders, others from your perspective as to why this is a community issue, it's very powerful. Okay, sorry.
No, thank you. Okay, Jordan, we can move to the next. Okay, so ways that you can engage. Kind of, here's your toolbox. And I'll just preface this to say that we're here to help you with all of these pieces. So don't just think that you're expected to carry the weight on your own. But sort of the kind of overarching ways to engage in advocacy is through writing letters, sending emails, calling your elected officials, those who are in office to represent you. They need to know your view, and if they don't hear from you, they won't know what their constituency's desires are. Testifying at public hearings. You know, it used to be in person. Some people might prefer now that it's over the phone or through email. It's kind of whatever your preference is, but documenting your view, your vote is important. And that goes all the way up the chain from school board to even Congress. And using the media. The media is a great tool to create awareness about an issue. Submitting op-eds or letters to the editor. And again, this is someplace that United Way is here to help you with drafting those letters to the editors. If there's a you see an article in the paper that speaks to something you care about, submit a letter to the editor reiterating why that's important or disagreeing with it, but using the media is a great vehicle to raise awareness. And then social media, we're all learning here, social media, but, tweet it out, Facebook, you name it. But again, that can, any way to sort of reach a broader network. And then finally, last but not least, and most importantly, vote, because you can't complain if you don't vote and are active in the elections. And that's for not just kind of the top of the ticket, but everyone down below as well. And then with your advocacy, how to make it effective, how to have the biggest bang for your buck. And really it's to be personal. Tell your story, and we're gonna work on that in shortly. But really, how are you impacted? How is your community impacted? Our elected officials need to hear and need to understand, and you are on the ground knowing what's going on, and that voice and that connection is important for them, and important that we can convey that. Facts and data. I mean, thanks to Allison at the United Way, but the United Way has so much data at their fingertips to help you make your case. And again, we're leaning into the United Way as a resource, but really any facts, even as Cathy was talking about childcare, she had statistics and facts to help make the case for all of you. We need to use that same data to make the case for elected officials. And have a specific ask. What are you advocating for? What is the change you want to see? And the more specific you can be, the more you can kind of measure the outcome and the effectiveness. And I always ask for a response. I want to know how my elected official feels about this issue. So don't let them off the hook. Always kind of say it. And I'd like to know how you feel about this. And this is kind of a breakdown, and I'll say we'll share this PowerPoint with you all after this presentation, so you have it, but this is just kind of a high-level overview. If you're writing a letter or an email, just kind of the steps you want to make sure that you are hitting all of these kind of benchmarks. Always say thank you, because everybody likes to be thanked. With your elevator pitch, that's if you are going to testify either in person or over the phone now is how City Council is doing it. I would say, short, concise, to the point, and practice. And, in front of the mirror, in front of your dog, in front of your kids, but just kind of practice that, your pitch. And that's kind of what we're here today to do. We're going to be doing some practicing. So we're going to, in a little bit, we're going to kind of give you all a chance to talk on your own. We're going to do some breakout rooms, and we're going to work on crafting our own personal message. And I'm going to ask you, keep it around childcare if you can, just because this is kind of our practice topic for today. So we're going to go into breakout rooms and craft a personal message about that. I care about access to quality childcare because, and here's an example of mine. And now granted, I had time to think about it. I had time to write it down, delete it, edit it. You don't have that privilege right now. So I recognize you guys are all on the spot. There's no right or wrong. This is really just a brainstorming exercise to get kind of ideas, thoughts flowing, to get some feedback. You don't have to be a parent to care about childcare. And as Cathy had said, the unlikely allies, the non-parents when they're stepping up to speak up on behalf of children and childcare workforce, that gets decision makers' attention. So, take a second to think about, and I'll kind of read, mine, I just, I've seen the impact of high quality early education on my kids, and I believe that every child should have the opportunity to access a high quality early education, so they can reach their full potential. And, trying to be concise, thoughtful, personal. But I think I'm going to let Jordan or Jennifer drive and create some breakout rooms and just, kind of try to complete this sentence, and you guys can share with one another, give feedback, ask questions, and there's no right or wrong. This is just to kind of try it on for size. And so I'll say, just so we are, so we make sure we end on time, it's just thinking we could take like 4 to 5 minutes to reflect on your conversations. If there was anything you wanted to share, any point that someone in your breakout room made that you really thought the group would benefit from hearing, we'd love to hear just how the exercise went and some of your takeaways. But no pressure, and there's a lot more.
And if you felt like nobody prepared me to do anything, tell us that too, so we can do that next time.
Right.
In our room, Brooke, this is Bill, we had a really great discussion about all the levels of our society that are affected by early childhood education. And what we realized is that it's people in the workforce, it's mothers, it's fathers, it's teachers, it's the children. We basically uncovered that it is everyone. And so we started to build a structure of what we wanted to say in terms of this affects us all. And without early childhood education being up front and center where it belongs in the minds of policymakers and everyone else, that the solutions won't be there. So we didn't fully flesh out the whole, but that was, I feel like, something that was great. We just all realized it's everyone that this affects, whether you have children or not.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Bill. Yeah, Paula?
Yeah, Brooke, it was your thankful suggestion to talk a little bit more about No Small Matter and some of the statistics that were available from that segment that I feel will help reinforce something, so that it's not just an emotional appeal, it's factual, and as Bill just mentioned, the range of impact that this has on our society. That's why it is no small matter. So
yeah, thank you.
Thanks for those stats.
It's a good plug for an amazing documentary. If you have not seen it, I know the United Way provides opportunities to screen that, and so keep an eye out. Great. Just for the sake of time, because I want to make sure we have a chance for a call to action, so you guys are on the hook for advocating when this call is over. Are keeping it kind of as a way to kind of just get your feet wet and dip your toe in the water, using kind of the personal narrative that you worked on today, that statement about I care about it because, why it's important to you, some of the data, using some of the data that Cathy presented. We're asking you to reach out to your city council member, and I saw in the chat that a lot of you know who that is, so that's fantastic, and to thank them for supporting the childcare industry and for their commitment to increasing access to quality childcare. So just a thank you, let them know this is important to you, why it's important to you, and to thank them for also valuing it and paying attention to it and investing in their youngest children. So we can help as part of a follow-up. I could put together a little script, but I also think you guys kind of have it, and we're helpful. We're here to help kind of supplant some data, some facts and figures, and doesn't have to be, it's not going to be graded. It's just letting your city council member know that you care and you want them to care as well. So that's our charge to you, number one. So and now is a really good time because there's a city council meeting tomorrow and they're voting on some important childcare initiatives. So the more that they can hear from you all that you are paying attention and this matters to you, the better. And Cathy made this point earlier in a breakout room, and I want to reiterate it, that they do, city council staff, all legislative staff, tallies the number of calls, emails, letters they get on specific issues, and they present that to their boss, the elected official. And that was kind of one of my first jobs many years ago, was to kind of field the constituents' calls and keep a record of what they were calling about. And oftentimes my boss would ask before a floor vote, like, how many people spoke up in favor of this? What are we hearing on this? So your elected officials pay attention to that, or at least the good ones should be. So I urge you to speak up. And then if you want to do more, and again, we can, I think Jordan will send these links and we can send this all in the follow-up material. We do have, through the United Way, an email with some advocacy alerts. We don't send it out often. We won't flood your inbox, but on occasion, when there's a really pressing issue, usually at the local level, we make it easy for you to engage and reach out. So if you're interested in getting those updates, please sign up. And we're really trying to bolster that list and sort of really grow our group of advocates. And that's not just childcare, but sort of all early childhood issues. Always, and this kind of goes to your call to action, but to tell your city council member to increase funding for childcare centers, again, and to thank them, because they recognize there's a need here and we just need to kind of capitalize on that. And then there is a campaign, a federal level campaign to save childcare, and that is contacting your federal delegation, Cruz and Corn, about supporting a federal stimulus bill focused on childcare. And so we need to keep that momentum going as well. So that's a quick and easy kind of just plug in your information and hit send. And then lastly, but by no means least, vote, please. Make sure you are registered, have a plan, know your ballot. And then another charge is to go get 5 friends and make sure that they too are registered. As part of our follow-up, and thanks to Marcom, we have a great kind of one-pager with all the details you need to know about how to register early voting, how to find out what's on your ballot and where to go. And we will send that again with the follow-up. And I encourage you to kind of send that out to your friends, post that on social media, but really the more we can do to get people at the polls, the better. And then finally, any other additional questions? It was a lot of breathing from the fire hose, so drinking from the fire hose, so a lot of information, but you've got a great team at United Way and they're always eager to help. And, we want you to feel empowered. This shouldn't be intimidating, but empowering. So if there are any questions, we have some time.
I was going to also preview that we have an upcoming, Texas legislature only meets every 2 years, every other year. And so we will plan some relationship building visits with the Travis County delegation. And then also United Ways of Texas has a day that they prioritize for United Ways to make visits. And we'd love to have you join us in that and roam the halls of the Capitol. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, if they let us in. Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask Brooke in regard to the votes that are happening tomorrow at City Council. Yeah. That feels really timely, obviously. Is there something that we could share out on social media? Like, is there a blurb? And maybe that's a question for Ashley. Is there something that we could share with this group to repost or to post?
Yeah, you know what, I did send, so to our advocacy list, the Success by Six advocacy list, I did kind of send like, here's a letter you can cut and paste and send, or you can sign up. Well, we missed the deadline. It was today at noon to sign up to just kind of register your vote in favor of something. So that's great. Kind of now with city council being all virtual, you can go online and we can forward you those links to say like, this is the item am I in favor or not in favor of? Do I want to testify? Yes or no? This is my name. This is my district. And so you can kind of record your view on a certain resolution or topic that the city's voting on without actually having to testify or present. So for the introverts on the call, that's a great way to engage. But we can send you, I can send you kind of, and work with Ashley, what we sent out yesterday around advocacy for what's happening tomorrow. But again, it kind of goes to thanking them for city council taking action. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
But that's a good point. Great. And just, you know, to leave you feeling inspired, empowered, and like ready to make change in this world. You know, your advocacy is critical. Your voice is important. Use it. You now have some tools and feel empowered and you know, be a voice for change. And we are so grateful to have you as a partner in this work. And now get your friends. Help us grow the network.
Totally. Well, as Brooke said, I think that's all we have for the rest of today. So we'll give you your 2 minutes back. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll be, as Brooke said, sending out some materials to everyone who is here on the call today with just some follow-ups and next steps. Thanks, folks.
Thank you all.
Bye.